Hey everyone, Dave Putz here from JKP Holdings. Alongside me, as always, Mr. Nathan Turner.
Good day.
Good day, good day. Hopefully we have a little better audio situation here today. If we don't, I'll go ahead and make sure we fix it pretty quickly, as I think I figured out the issue over here, but we'll go from there. So,
Yeah.
Nathan.
Yes.
We're going to get it out of the way first. Mention it, I guess, in the room or whatever. Canada is going through craziness right now from the state side. Without getting too detailed, how are you? Is everything going okay?
We're totally fine. Everything was just so. I'm in just outside of Montreal. I don't know if anything was happening in Montreal at all. I hardly ever go into Montreal. It's, I've got my home office, so that's good enough for me. As far as I know, really everything was going on in Ottawa, right at Capitol Hill. And so, I mean, it's fine. Everything's cleared now. My friends in Alberta were upset because the border was blocked, and that was, inconvenient, but really that's really all it was. So we're fine. Everything's good. We're good.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, right? Because there was a few people mentioning how they were very curious how you're making out. And of course, what we hear is a lot different from what is possibly happening.
Yeah, I just keep my head down, keep doing what I'm doing, whatever. I went snowboarding this morning. It was fantastic.
So
good.
Business as usual, right?
For me, yeah. I know there were certain people that were, it was really disruptive and like I say, inconvenient more than anything else. But by and large, really business as usual.
I'm glad to hear that, man.
Yeah, thanks.
Because
you guys, and I've heard of outside of Canada, there New Zealand in particular, but we don't have anyone on the call from New Zealand. But anything else going on anywhere?
I haven't heard anything, right? I know at the end of the day, we don't know what's happening anywhere else. As long as we're doing okay, we got to focus on what we can do, right? We can only do what we can do. And I think for me, we're curious. It comes back to curiosity, right?
Yeah, I don't really pay very much attention. In everything that I do, my main focus is how is this going to affect my business? That's really what it comes down to for me. I don't get too upset otherwise.
Yeah, it's, how does it affect me? How does it affect my family? If all that's good, it's all that matters.
Yeah.
Right? So, well, glad you joined us, man. I know that we're selling a few assets right now. We bought a few assets last week. We're seeing some influx of deals coming through. Things like that. Things are opening up a little bit, right? There's some talks about the PA contract or deed issue that's possibly going down with.
That's an interesting situation.
6%,
right? Yeah. I had that call from the AG years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, and that was a scary call. But in the end, luckily I'd already foreclosed through all the proper channels. Everything else was all good, and I had already actually sold the property, so it didn't actually come back to me at all. But but it's out there.
Yeah.
If you don't know what we're talking about, look on Facebook.
The whole feed. I did not expect what came out of me posting that, so I'm glad it helped who it did. So Smitty still load everyone, so I'm glad. Feel free to post comments and questions below. I think today's video is going to be really, really needed heard. What you're going to get from this thing, right? And this recording will be on YouTube and Facebook, all the good stuff. And check out Nathan's Facebook group. He's running some stuff. And his YouTube channel too, so make sure you promote it. We'll have this on there, and I think this is something you're gonna have to listen to a few times. Because this will, if you're learning what you're learning, this can change how you do business and your profits. So this is a key thing. There are some things we got to make sure of. However, just take some information and put it in your back pockets for when you need to use it. It's available. Cool.
Yeah.
So, Nathan, you and I have been through foreclosures before. I think sometimes more than we want to be.
Yes. Many times, and sometimes it's not a big deal. Other times it's a big deal, and it's a big ordeal. I've had 2. I know we're talking specifically about New York. I've done 2 New York notes, and I've sworn off New York. The foreclosures were such a headache.
We're going to see if we can change your mind.
Yeah, I'm hoping that this would open some doors again.
I think I can.
For me, foreclosure started off as a really crazy system that we didn't understand, came to a point where it was a systematic thing, and we knew when to check in bullet points. We knew when a deal was good, when it passed judgment, a judgment date and all that stuff, and we have all that stuff's good. But the time frame is a big deal, and that's huge, right? The cost we can reduce a little bit, it doesn't change much, but time is money in our business. Taxes, everything to play with it.
Yeah.
So I'm at a conference talking, and I meet a couple of gentlemen who talk about this thing called foreclosure by federal processes, right? And then I jump on a phone call with them that I think was going to be a 10-minute call, the end being much longer. And I was astonished to learn that there's been some notes we could have done, save money, time, increase profits, and bid lower simply because of the different processes that we didn't understand. So understand that we need to learn everything to go and play. I haven't yet gone through the foreclosure process. Most of our assets right now either have done or performing. So we're grateful we're stuck in BK. So we're right now grateful for where we're at. And we sold off a couple and we're going to get into foreclosure. But Nathan, have you done any foreclosure recently with the whole COVID craziness?
Oh yeah. I've got several in foreclosure at any given time. So it's a pretty common thing for me. For the most part, it's not a big deal. My main, Aaron can tell you, Tuesday is my attorney day. So every Tuesday, if I haven't heard from you, or if you know there's something where I've asked you a question you haven't answered yet, I follow up on Tuesdays. And so that's my attorney follow-up day. And it takes several hours to go through everything and make sure that everything is up to where it needs to be. Did we file that thing that we said we are going to file, or whatever it is, and just kind of keeping up.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think for me, you know, it's a hassle and just a bothersome sometimes. We want to get through fast. We want to do it right. So we invited Lance on, who's sitting there with a smile on his face, who's been doing this foreclosure process. I think he told us for about 6 months now, right? Lance, you've been doing foreclosures only about 6 months?
It's somewhere between 6 months and 35 years. I lost it. I don't remember.
Lance, can you tell us a little bit about your background, how you got involved, what have you been doing for 35 years of your life?
Well, let me start at the beginning with getting this out of the way, that anything that I'm talking about today is not to be construed by anybody on this call or on this webinar as specific legal advice. The only way we can give you legal advice is if the firm is formally retained, and you're not to take anything that I'm saying as specific advice for any specific set of circumstances. This is all general. And okay, now that the disclaimer, now that the Miranda rights are out there, I've been doing default work now for about 35 years. I ended up stumbling into this purely accidentally. I was doing some regular real estate, residential real estate, and I was a collection attorney. And a friend of mine from law school, who is just retired from the Pennsylvania governor's office as the counsel, was leaving New York and handed me a box full of files and said, "Good luck, I'm out of here." And that was how I got into the REO business. It started off with lease servicing, which was later acquired by Superior Bank, and a wonderful client then, and still some amazing people I work with. And that was the springboard to get me into this industry. So I've been practicing default work for banks and servicers and note holders now. It's about 35 years. And that's a long, long time, but it's been a journey. It's been
You've
a
seen a lot
of things.
And I started off with a full head of hair, and this is what happened to me. So,
yeah.
So that the conversation is about federal court. Let me start off by explaining the biggest differences between federal court and state court, at least in New York. In state court, all judges are elected or appointed by somebody who's elected, which means that there's always a political element to a state court judge in New York. No matter how good or how learned the judge is on the bench as a result of some political process. And you can't remove that element from the process, because a judge's job is not only to sit on the bench and act as a judge, but also in the interest of self-preservation to get reelected or to get moved up to a higher court as time goes by. And we can't get that process, that element out of the way in a state court process. And it's going to vary from, the impact of that will vary from judge to judge. Federal court, conversely, federal court judges are appointed by Congress. It's a lifetime appointment. It is very, very, very difficult to remove a federal court judge. And in my experience, almost without exception, almost every federal court judge is of a much higher caliber than a typical state court judge. And I'm not in any way demeaning the state court judges, but there are different requirements to being a state court judge than there is to being a federal court judge. The federal court judges are typically the cream of the crop. It's a really long and difficult process to get an appointment from Congress to be a federal court judge. And I just saw on the news today that President Biden has his pick for the Supreme Court justice to be, and you'll see the process that goes through. So by the time we get into federal court, we are typically in front of a judge who is removed for the most part from the political process. The judge doesn't have to worry about being going up for election every 2 to 4 years. It's a lifetime appointment, and they can sit back and do their job without interference by anybody else. The federal court docket is also much, much, much smaller than the state court docket. And most importantly, the federal court system is funded better typically than the state court system, which means that there were more clerks, there were more resources, and the not only more in terms of quantity, but also in terms of quality, because the clerks for state court justices